Hello, it is Rachel, and welcome to episode 313 of Your Parenting Long Game. Recently, I've been talking a lot about what I call influence leaks, ways that we are losing influence without our even realizing that we're doing it. And that's because if we want to motivate better behaviors and moods and attitudes in our children with big emotions, we have to give them what they need in order to feel and act better. But in order for them to be receptive to us giving them what they need, we have to be what I call a powerful, positive influence. And if we are leaking influence, we are not a powerful, positive influence. And there are obvious benefits that happen when we are a powerful, positive influence, or what I call a PPI. Because when we are a PPI and we ask our kids to do something, stop being mean to their brother or sister, or put away their clothes or the things that they've taken out and played with. When we are a PPI and we ask them to do those things, they actually listen. When we are a PPI and they're upset, maybe they get upset because they made a mistake and they feel really bad. When we are a PPI, we can help them calm down more quickly. And when we are a PPI and we try to talk to our kids after the fact, maybe a situation didn't go well and we want to bring it up with them, usually our kids are going to resist it and maybe our conversations are going to make them upset. But when we are a PPI and we bring up these conversations, they are more likely to have those conversations with us so we can improve situations going forward. But as I said, often we are leaking influence or losing influence and we're not even aware. So in the last episode, I talked about the influence leak that happens when we are setting unrealistic expectations for our kids. In this episode, I'm going to talk about where we leak influence or lose influence because we are not predictable. So here's what that looks like, and it seems innocent enough. For example, if you ask them to put their stuff away, but you're not asking them at a normal time when you usually ask them, or you're not asking them at a time that is sort of set in your family routine, if you're just saying to them, hey, can you clean up after yourself? That is actually an example of an influence leak. Or if your child asks you if they can do something, maybe go to their friend's house or eat a second dessert, and they don't know what your response is going to be, that is an influence leak. These things seem innocent enough, but they actually aren't. When our kids don't know when we're going to ask them to do something, when our kids don't know what our response is going to be, we actually leak influence. They're less likely to listen to us and they're more likely to get upset. Now, I will tell you that there are a lot of ways that we are leaking influence, and if you want to know specifically how you are leaking influence, and if you also want to know what your child needs in order to feel and act better, in order to be more confident and more resilient, I do have a free assessment that you can take that will tell you where you're leaking influence and what your child needs to do better. And at the time of this recording, I'm also doing a free 30-minute phone call with you. And at the time of this recording, I'm also throwing in a free 30-minute call. So we go through that assessment together, and I'll tell you what it would look like to plug those influence leaks and to give your kids what they need to be more resilient, to be more confident, and to bring more calm to your home. If you want more information about that informal assessment and the call with me, you can find that on the show notes for this episode. There are also some other free resources for you there as well. That's at rachel-bailey.com/313. But for now, I'm going to go back to that lack of predictability that we have and why these responses that we give without knowing it actually reduce our influence. So there are two types of issues with predictability that tend to lead to problems. The first is when we make an unpredictable request. So again, maybe we ask them to clear the toys that they've been playing with, but they didn't know that we were going to ask them at that moment. So we are thinking in our heads, well, yeah, my child has to clean because we have company coming over and they have soccer practice or piano practice later, so they have to clean right now. We're doing all of these calculations in our head, and we decide without our child being aware that right now is the best time for them to put their things away. Now, maybe in their mind, they were going to get to keep playing for a little while longer, or they thought that they were going to do something different with their day. And it seems to them, it's their perception that this is happening out of the blue. When we are asking them things that they don't expect, we leak influence, and it's going to lead to negative behavior, moods, and attitudes. Another type of lack of predictability is when we give an unexpected response. This one is very, very common. So for example, maybe your child says, can I be on my screens longer today? And they don't actually know how you're going to answer. So again, you're doing all these calculations in your head. Well, do we have extra time or do we need to get out of the house? So you're making these decisions in your mind. They don't really know what's going into these decisions, and you just give them a yes or no based on the calculations you have made in your mind. If they don't know what your answer is going to be, that's actually going to lead to a loss of influence and bigger emotions in response to what you tell them. I will tell you that unexpected asks and unexpected responses lead to more resistance in their behavior. They listen less and push more, and it also leads to bigger meltdowns. And here's why. If we ask them something out of the blue, remember, many of our kids struggle with flexible thinking. So they may have imagined that they were going to do something one way, and you come from, again, in their perception, out of the blue, asking them to do something. That's going to be really, really hard for them. They're going to have a big reaction because they expected things to go one way. They didn't go that way. And so you're going to see those feelings inside that they have when they feel like something happened out of the blue and they weren't prepared for it. They're also going to resist more because you're going to ask them to do something. Again, they weren't prepared for it. Now they're in yuck, and their yuck response is to be defiant or disrespectful, and it's going to lead to a lot more negativity. So an unexpected ask is not going to lead to the result that you want. Similarly, an unexpected response is going to lead to more resistance, more pushback, and more big emotions. Because let's say they do ask you if they can play longer on their screens. Now, if there's any chance that you're going to say yes, for example, if you have said yes in the past, and now this time you say no, they're going to push harder and harder because in their mind, they're thinking, oh, mom or dad has given this to me in the past. So if I just push, maybe there's a chance they'll give it to me again this time. Now, when you're predictable, they know that there's no chance whatsoever. So they don't even push because they realize that it doesn't even make sense to push. Again, if they think there's any possibility that you're going to give in, but you don't give in, even though you have in the past, they're going to have a bigger reaction. Their brain is going to get even more disappointed because they have the thought, oh, sometimes I get this, but this time I'm not getting it. So they're going to be even more frustrated, more disappointed, and you're going to get a bigger reaction. The other issue with lack of predictability is that when our kids feel like we decide their fate, we decide if they can be on their screens or not, we decide when they have to clean, what happens is they feel powerless and out of control, and they start to resent us more. We know that our kids with big emotions have a big thing for things being fair. So they're going to see it as unfair that they don't have any say in how things go, or they don't know how things are going to go. And again, that's going to make them really resent us. They feel like we have all of the power. They have no power. It's going to create yuck for them, and it's going to create more negative behaviors, moods, and attitudes. And what we usually try to do in the moment when we've been unpredictable and our child gets upset or they resist more is we try to justify it to them in that moment. We say, but you have to clean because you have to go to soccer or piano practice later. And we try to explain to them all of the reasons why we're asking them to do what we're asking them to do, but they don't care about those reasons. And even if they did, in that moment, they're already in yuck because they didn't know it was going to happen. So they get more upset. And when they're in yuck, they can't hear what you're saying anyway. All they hear is that you're trying to convince them not to feel the way they feel. They're going to become even more upset. Or again, we justify why they can't be on their screens. We say, but we have so many other things we have to do today, or you got 2 hours yesterday, or whatever our reason is. In that moment, they can't hear us. They don't care. All they feel is that we are minimizing what they are going through, basically implying that they shouldn't be upset, but they are upset, and telling them that they shouldn't be or trying to get them to see our perspective doesn't go very well. Now, I want you to imagine what this might be like for you. Imagine someone who has a little bit of power over you. I always go back to the example of a boss because they have some power over you theoretically. Imagine there's a meeting at work that you hate. You feel like it's a waste of time for you to be there. When you're there, it causes you extra work and it puts you behind so that you have to work a little bit later. You absolutely hate this meeting. And you know there's always a chance that you have to go at some point, but your boss springs it on you every once in a while. You don't know when it's going to be, but your boss springs it on you and you just have to go to that meeting. Now imagine one day you were trying to get out of the office early. Maybe you wanted to go to your child's play, or you wanted to go to your child's sports game, whatever you wanted to do, and your boss sprung it on you. You didn't know it was coming. You imagined your day was going to go one way, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, you have to go to this meeting that you hate. How would you feel? That's basically what we're doing to our kids. We're asking them to do something that they don't want to do, that they don't care about, and we're asking it in their mind from out of the blue because they didn't know it was coming, because there was no predictability. They get really upset just like you would. Now imagine you're asking your boss for something. Maybe you're asking them if you can go on a vacation, and in your mind you're already imagining how relaxing this vacation is going to be. You're already looking forward to it. You thought there was a pretty good chance that your boss was going to say yes because they've said yes in the past. And this time when you ask them, they say no. And you don't know why they're saying no because your boss in their mind is calculating why it's a bad idea for you to go away. And often the reason that it's a bad idea has to do with them. Maybe it's what's on their plate, what their workload is like. So they're calculating, oh, it's not a good time for my employee to go because I have all these other projects. So they say no to you based on a decision they made and you weren't aware was coming. How are you going to feel? You're probably going to be very resentful of that. This is what happens with our kids. They imagine that things are going to go one way, that we're going to say yes to them because in the past at times we've said yes to them. And then we tell them no, but they don't really know why. And then we try to convince them that we are right and they shouldn't feel the way they feel. That's what's going on for our kids. So no wonder they are more resistant and no wonder they have these big reactions. Now, the good news is there are many simple solutions to combat this influence leak. Now, what I usually do in my programs is I personalize these solutions to the parents who are in my programs who are coming to me, but I want to give you a couple of examples of how you can plug this leak. One example is to create a schedule, especially around the things that your kids really want to do. Now, this definitely means creating a schedule around screens. So it's not you deciding whether they can be on screens or not. It is the schedule deciding whether they can be on screens or not. Then all you do is follow the schedule. And when they ask you, they know what your answer is going to be. In fact, you can point to it. If you have a visual schedule or calendar on the wall of when they can be on screens and when they can't, all you'd have to do is point to the wall. And the truth is, yeah, they're still probably going to get upset. But when this becomes consistent, when this is predictable, when they know what the schedule is, eventually they become less and less disappointed because they know what is going to happen. Now, a lot of parents will say to me, but Rachel, sometimes I need my kids to be on screens. For example, in the morning, I just need a little bit more sleep, or in the afternoon, I need to get some more work done, so I need them to be on screens. In that case, have a consistent response to what they can do when it is not screen time, but when you are not available. I have a whole episode on how to teach kids to use what I call variations, how to teach them to find things to do that start with activities they like and creating some variety in those activities so they actually want to do that thing. So they know that if it's not screen time, they have to go do a variation and they want to do a variation. They are less likely to be resistant when they know that's just how it goes. The other way to plug this leak is to decide how you are going to respond, especially to the things that they really want to do. How you're going to respond when, for example, they ask for a second dessert, or how you're going to respond when they ask to go to their friend's house. Let them know ahead of time how you are making these decisions so they know what to expect. So if they ask if they can go to their friend's house, you can say, hey, remember, the rule is no going to friend's house within 2 hours of dinner time. So they know that rule ahead of time. You're not doing those calculations in your head and they're wondering, can I get everything done? They know what you are going to say. Now, obviously things change, life changes, but you can think about these things ahead of time. You tend to know when your child is going to ask you to go to a friend's house. And even if you just let them know the night before, even if you don't have a concrete schedule, but you give them the predictability by saying, hey, tomorrow, just so you know, we don't have time to do friends' houses. Then in the moment, they're less likely to ask to begin with because they know, but even if they do, it was something they knew ahead of time. You're not just doing these calculations in your head, trying to make the decision on your own. They knew what you were going to say. And honestly, things are a lot safer for them when they know how things are going to go than when they think things are unpredictable or chaotic or there's no rhyme or reason to answers. Unfortunately, when we are unpredictable, a lot of negative things happen. First of all, our kids feel like we have all the power and they have none, which is going to create a lot of yuck for them. They also start to resent us because they think that we're not really caring about them or that we are doing things that matter more to us than to them. This, unfortunately, is going to impact your influence. They're going to get more upset when you ask them to do things. And it's also going to affect your relationship. They're going to feel more negatively towards you. On the other hand, when we make some simple changes, when we are more predictable, we have schedules, we let them know what's going to happen ahead of time, a lot of positive things happen. First of all, they stop asking so much if they can have something because they know that they can't. And in their experience, when they've asked us, we have consistently said no, or we've consistently responded in a certain way, and they stop trying. It also means that a relationship is no longer based on power struggles and negotiations and big emotions. There's a lot less drama in your home when you are more predictable or when you tell them what is going to happen. They feel like they have some say in how things go, which improves our relationship with them, and ultimately, believe it or not, it helps them feel more capable because they know how things are going to go, so they're more confident that they can handle things versus living in a state where they're not sure how things are going to go. They don't feel as capable in those environments. And ultimately, when you plug this influence leak, when you become more predictable, you spend more of your time with your child enjoying them rather than fighting with them. You're not worried about the state of your relationship. You're not worried, am I damaging things? Am I messing up? And you can feel good as a parent, not only because you're having more positive interactions, but because you know you're doing the right thing. And that means you have less doubt and less guilt. That is long game parenting. Now, again, if you want to hear more about what your child needs to feel and act better, to be more confident, to be more resilient, to be able to handle it when you ask them to do things, to be able to handle it when you say no, and if you want to know where you are leaking influence, I encourage you to check out that free informal assessment that I have. And again, if you are signing up around the time when this episode is available, I'm also throwing in that free 30-minute call with me where we can focus on that assessment, the results of your assessment, and what things could look like going forward. You can find all of that and other resources on the show notes for this episode at rachel-bailey.com/313. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again soon.